managed as one of the biggest producers in the Latin space with Taney. You know what I'm saying? Like, big records. So I need y'all to really do me a favor, get off my man Lex Borrero one time. Man. This is like surreal because, you know, we've had so much history. We haven't seen each other in about 8 years. He's now a dad as well. You know what I'm saying? Got a lot of things going on. Let's just have a conversation first about how you initially kind of got into music in general, or events and music in general.
Honestly, I didn't want to be in music. I wanted to be an architect. I thought that was going to be my dream. But Danny, who's standing back there, who now is my assistant, back in high school, my mother got a divorce, and I started just going over to his house and sleeping over his house and staying there for months. And he was just like a huge music fanatic. His whole room was full of posters. And I just started loving everything about music, but most importantly, what it culturally was doing, right? Like the impact that it had on people. I loved Michael Jordan. I was a huge Jordan fan, so that really resonated. And essentially, I started to flip music. I was burning it and selling it in school, and then I decided I started to mess with Fruity Loops, really early version of Fruity Loops. I had a demo, and I made a record with a kid from class, and we started selling that to everybody, and that really kind of started to get that process of, I want to do this. I want to really be in music. I think there's a business here. And I'll skip the story that you can find in 1,000 interviews I've done, but essentially, one thing led to the next, and I ended up in New York City in what was the first music conference I had ever gone to, Beat Battle, and I had found, you know, an article about it, and so I go to the Beat Battle, and the organizer of that essentially told me I didn't make it into the Beat Battle, to go fuck myself. Excuse the curse, but that was exactly what she told me. And I said, okay, well, I'm gonna go to the conference. I'll go to the conference, watch the conference. The day of the Beat Battle, she called all the producers, and a lot of producers that became big after were there, like Fuego and all these guys. And the last person didn't show up, so I run down the Park Central Hotel, you know, tell her, please let me get into it, me and my guys, and we got into it, and we win the Beat Battle, and that was kind of the first, oh, okay, there's a chance of making it. Yeah. And then I said, I think the best way to make it is to go to these conferences. This is how I'm gonna get relationships. And every time that I would go to a conference, I'd look at the panels and I'd start figuring out, okay, how am I gonna speak to this person? Or, you know, how am I going to make sure that person knows who I am by bringing them a coffee? And I went to the Arizona one, you know, which was like my third or fourth conference. And I noticed the intro to it was Hatch and his partner and Shaw kind of talking about it. And I had met Shaw being in New York City, passing my beat CDs. And so, yeah, Shaw Money, who at the time was managing 50. And in the middle of sitting in that conference, I just said to myself, like, why are all the conferences in these boardrooms that are so boring? Like, where's the fun in this? Like, I want to be on the beach. I want to, like, sit down, get in the pool, this. And I said, I'm going to go talk to this guy. And I approached him. I remember I was super nervous. I was, like, shaking, you know, because you're a kid trying to make it in the music. And at the time...
Saying I'm old?
You know, got a couple of wrinkles that I don't. But Hatch, you know, and mind you, I mean, that's the fact that all you guys are here and he's hosting this is, Hatch was really a huge foundation of why the producer business became what it became, because him and his company really created waves in the business that said, wait, there's business behind managing a producer. There's business behind working in this space. And so I approached him with this idea that originally was Nikki Beach. Was like, I felt like Nikki Beach would be the perfect venue. And I was like, we're going to do this. And I've always been that kid that believed in what I was doing. Like, I just believed that anything that I put my mind into was going to happen. So I sold him on the dream. I flew to New York City after. And, you know, I remember I went into his office. I was like, you got to do it in Nikki Beach. And he started calling me Nikki Beach. Like, him and his partners were like, yo, Nikki, what's up? But I was like, you know, we're going to make it. And he's like, cool, but like, what do you do? What do you have in Miami? I'm like, you know, I could do this and this and this, but by the way, can I stay on your couch tonight? Because I don't know where to stay. And essentially, he was, you know, he was a good friend and let me stay on his couch even though I had just met him. And then every time I had a crazy idea, I really would go to Hatch. And, you know, as time would happen, I started to have success and breakthrough.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Long story. So there was a time where things got a little rough in the process. So we did this big event, right? And back then we were kind of naive, I think, a little bit. We were super hungry. We had really great relationships, which was important, because of the things that we were doing and how we were moving around. But we decided to do this Beats on the Beach, this place called Doubletree Surf Comber on South Beach, right? And they wanted $20,000 a day just for the pool. If we wanted to lock out the pool 100%, not have anybody else go back there, but our event, we had to pay $10,000. I remember cutting two $20,000 checks. Now this is back in the day where you'd spend like a good $500-$600 to go to a real big conference. We had some big names, but they also hit us with you got to book these many hotels, and also you got to have this food budget, right? And you got a noise ordinance. You need a fucking ice truck to come, and you need a permit for this and. We're like, wait, this shit is adding up.
Looking back, Nikki Beach would have been perfect. I'm just saying, it would have saved us a lot of headache.
But just the fact that we were so ambitious, we were like, man, do the math. If we can do this, we can get by. And eventually, what started happening is people were like, looking like, okay, I gotta book the hotel there, and I gotta buy a pass. So we started getting into this groove where I was like calling everybody, like, yo, book the hotel, I'll give you a free pass. You can do this. You can be on stage if you buy 5 hotel rooms. So we ended up, we're doing this event. DJ Clue's supposed to DJ for us. He doesn't DJ for us. I'm getting calls like 4 o'clock in the morning because I didn't sleep the whole weekend. Literally did not sleep the whole weekend. So the last day, we're like adding up all the information, right? They give us this sheet, and we're looking at the cost versus what we brought in, and we're like short like 11 grand, right? So I had like 4 grand in cash from people paying at the door. And I was like, all right, so we need to pay 7 grand. We're looking at each other like, I don't got 7 grand. You got 7 grand? No. Can you borrow from your mom? No, I can't borrow from nobody. So they all elected me to go speak to the hotel manager. So if we were going to get locked up, it was my fault at the time. So I went in and I was like, listen, we obviously put a lot of effort into this event. We brought a lot of great people out. I think we hit our like hotel number and our budget, but we didn't hit another number. We spent 20 grand a day for the pool. Like, do me a favor and give us an opportunity to like pay this off over the next couple months, right? So take my card. We'll do this every month. 2 months into the payments, I'm emailing a woman. She's not responsive. I'm emailing her, not responsive. Finally, I called the hotel and hey, I'm looking for so-and-so. She's like, oh, the hotel got bought out by somebody else and she doesn't work here anymore. I was like, cool, I just saved 5 grand. So we were like, yeah. Because literally, and the funny shit is that the owner, the manager of the hotel was like, we were all like, we had our bags, like we got nowhere to stay. We had no money to book hotel rooms. So the guy was like, listen, man, he's like, how many of you are there? I think we were like 4 or 5. They're like, we got you on the night. You guys can stay here. There's no charge. We got you. We're like, okay, it's crazy. But we literally almost got arrested and had us taken out of there.
You did, because I was gonna bail. So get my bags and go.
Right. But like I said, we used to do a lot of events back then. You had a dream big, hustle hard with your brand, your company. Talk about how that started. What was like your main goal with that, and what did you see happening for the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think from day one, I think even to this day, I credit all my success to always looking at the problem and in the problem, the opportunity, right? And so originally, before I even met Hatch, I had this idea that I felt like, I grew up in the church. My mom was a pastor, is a pastor. And I felt like Christian music was just lacking that extra oomph that will give it the exposure to the regular audience. And so I created a company called Crossover Music Group, and that started to create the momentum in my life of saying, okay, how do I take producers that work on secular music and put them in? And I got crushed. Like at that time, years later, Lecrae asked me to manage him, but in that time, Lecrae was like, we can't work with secular producers. It was a big thing. So that kind of got reinvented into this company called Dream Big, Hustle Hard. And that was, I'm very big in naming my companies and kind of creating models that really define what the company was. And it was basically that. It was, we understood that there was a concept behind building producers, and we wanted to be the premier company in managing producers. And luckily from Beats on the Beach, what happened is that we needed to get a sponsor for all the press and all the print. And I found a sponsor that was a friend of Studio Center, of the guy who owns Studio Center. And he repped an artist called Explicit. And so in trading for us to get all the free print and billboards and all the things that we had, they wanted Explicit to perform. And I remember Explicit went in front of all the judges, Lenny S. and everybody, and he was like, you know, I'm going to make it with or without you. F. You remember that? He threw the and Lenny was like, okay, good luck with that. But this kid Explicit just had it. He just had this ride. And, you know, today he's a millionaire and has written multiple hit records for every artist that you could think of. But that was my introduction to him, which essentially I started to manage him and started to get him all these placements and build his career. And then he introduced me to his engineer, which was this guy named Stephen Johnson. And Stephen actually went to SAE. And his brother, Jordan, who had also started to produce, and they were the monsters. And maybe 6 months after that, I happened to be dating this girl, and every time I was with her, she was playing this song called Sticks and Stones. And I was like, okay, like, give the song some rest. Who are these guys? Oh, these two guys from Pembroke Pines called The Strangers. And at the time, Blue Williams, who had Outkast, he was managing this kid, Khalil, asked me for a session. So I happened to put the Monsters and Strangers together for the first time in the room. And I saw the magic, and I said, okay, this is where it's at. I'm going to manage these guys. This is what I'm going to build my company off. I'm going to create a publishing business. I'm going to publish all of them. And obviously that turned out to be, you know, huge. I mean, they've had like, at this point, probably like 10 number ones on Billboard, Bieber, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that's how it started. It started because of Beats on the Beach, and then that became that. And that company transitioned to another business as I moved to LA and essentially became one of the biggest producer managers in the business, then turned publisher, then turned, you know, music supervisor for film and TV while I was in LA. And then that led to me leaving and becoming co-chair of Universal Canada in Toronto. And then I led Rock Nation for Jay-Z for 2.5 years as EVP of the whole company, and then came to Miami to what I thought was retire and enjoy my money. And I met Tiny became my neighbor, and I started to see what was going on in Latin music, and here we are.
Yes. Yeah. Give it up for that. Yeah. So, speaking on this kid Explicit, because he did cause quite a ruckus at the Beats on the Beach, we actually, through our standard, helped a relationship build with an A&R bad boy named Skid at the time. And remember him calling me up and going, yo, we got this record, I need an intro, but I think the record's kind of corny. He's like, I'm not sure if I want to play it for him, right? It was going to be a record that was going to be on Last Train to Paris. It ended up being on a deluxe edition, whatever. But it was like, you know, it was called Diddy Bop, and it was real like, you know, I do the Diddy, I do the Diddy Bop. But the great thing was Explicit stayed on as an artist, right? He was a feature on the record, so it was Diddy featuring Explicit. And then, you know, I think from that point on, people just started paying more attention to him. Who's this guy? Things started to happen. And then a couple years later, we had a conversation about Trey Songz and Soulja Boy and Yanni, and we helped facilitate certain things. But, you know, we've always had a relationship where, like there's, like what Ilma was saying earlier, like, you're not looking for anything in return. You know what I'm saying? It's my brother, if I can help him win, or if he knows if I, like, he actually got me an interview at Rock Nation to be on the publishing side as well. You know what I'm saying? So he'll throw me something, I'll throw him something. You know, it's just one of those things. And I think when you find people that you know, where it's more like, you know, we clicked immediately. And I think sometimes when you're in rooms like this and you're with people that all have those like-minded, you know, thoughts and goals, all it takes is the right mesh. You know what I'm saying? It just takes that one conversation. That one day you're like, I don't really talk to people often. I'm a little introverted. Nah, like, open your mouth. Talk to people. You know what I'm saying? Like, we were so constricted during the pandemic, right, that we almost forgot how to talk to people. You know, and then we're on this all day, and we're like, we don't even know how to have a conversation, right? So we come from an older school where it was all about going to those conferences and being able to have that access where it wasn't like, oh, you can't talk to these guys. You know, we would go to the One Stop, and who they have at the One Stop? You got DJ Premier, you got Q-Tip, you got Swizz Beatz, you got Tony Ayo running up and down, remember? Running up and down the thing when 50 got home, and they were like, oh, throw CDs in the bag for 50. And so many great things came from that because people were actually present in the moment. And I think that's a big thing, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, growing from where you were with Dream Big Hustle Hard, and then, you know, dealing with the Monsters and Strangers, what did you learn about yourself and your capacity to, like, manage people and just processes in general?
Well, I think there's two things. One is you have to understand in this business and in any business, relationships are everything, right? And I think the key to a relationship is a lot of people in our business, this is a creative business, so people tend to have, to get egos over things or be very protective over things or feel some kind of way. And you see it happen with artists all the time. They're always arguing, they're always beefing. But the reality is, like, you have to always come to a relationship with something in your hand, right? I would always say to people, like, I didn't go to Hatch and say, yo, Hatch, give me an opportunity. I came to Hatch with an opportunity. I came to Hatch, I didn't know anything, but I said, hey, here's an idea, and here's a potential on how we can do it, and this is what I could bring to the table. And so throughout building my career, that's been the key to building relationships. I always come, like, if I wanted to meet somebody, you know, now I'm dealing with billionaires and other people, and every time I'm speaking to Steve Cohen, who's the owner of the Mets, or, you know, my co-chair of the company, who's Tommy Mottola, who is a titan in the music industry, I always think of, like, what is the added value? How are we having this conversation so I could bring, but you have to create relationship with that in mind, right? Like, try to figure out if you are great at, you know, if you're a songwriter and you're great at lyrics, go find someone who's great at melody. I also learned that, you know, we're taught by society to always try to work on your weaknesses, right? Like, people have a way to put you down because of your weakness. You're not good at this. Like, well, you need to get better at this. And at school, they tell you that. And I always tell people, scratch that. God made you great with something. Go be great at what you are, and go find someone who's great at what you're not, and balance that off. And that was the thing about Hatch, that I was always an idea guy. I've always been an idea guy. I see the problem, and in that problem, I mean, we even had some tech ideas that are around that became essentially what you see today as OnlyFans and all these things. And it was like, I always had these insane ideas, and to me, he was the business guy at the time, because I was just a kid with a dream. He leveled me out. He was like, oh, well, that's great. I believe in that idea. This and this person can help me make it happen. So find someone who balances it. And second, we're in a business that's based on perception. So one of the things that is really huge is brand building, right? Like, you always heard that back in the day with producers, like, you knew when Timbaland would make a beat, or Swiss, or Pharrell, or, you know, the brand of an artist. Today, the reality is music lost its value, right? Like, there's too much music. So the only thing that matters is consistency and brand building. And more than ever, you know, the styling, the way you present yourself, all that matters, because and you see it in artists across the board. But in business, it's the exact same thing. I needed to build a brand. And so when I would get one placement, even if it was a Soulja Boy placement at the time, I would sell that thing all the way until it was released, right? Because once it's released, if the song is a flopper, it's a flopper, you lost your selling point. But before that, I was like, I got this, and I would make that to leverage that to build relationships, because the reality is people in this business look at perception, right? All of a sudden, a guy might talk to you today and be like, oh, cool, yeah, thank you for your demo, goodbye. Tomorrow, you happen to be producing somebody, a big record for Jay, and all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, bro, I always knew you had it. It's all perception. Like, and it's okay, like, you can't fight against it, you just have to understand it so you can play the chess game, right? So perception was a big deal on how you build the company and how we build the Monsters and Strangers. I also, again, I saw the problem. Like, one of the biggest things is, and I see this with my daughter now, and I tell this to my team, is as humans, we have an incredible ability to solve problems, right? My daughter, I put her in her playpen, and the moment she's annoyed, and she's only 10 months old, she's like, oh, I'm out. She figures the thing out, she gets herself out, and I'm like, God, how do you get out? What we suck at is telling our brain what the problem is, because we don't tend to know what we really want. We're like, I want to be famous. Dude, you can trip right here, somebody puts you on TikTok, you're famous, right? Like, I tell my clients, you want a Grammy, there's 32 categories. What Grammy do you want? So that we know how to get there. You want, you know, today we were celebrating, for example, Tiny got nominated for a Grammy this year. We're like, we knew exactly the Grammy that we wanted to get, so we knew what we were working towards. We knew exactly, like with the Monsters and Strangers, I knew where I wanted to build them. I knew that, hey, if we want Maroon 5 placement, I'm gonna go find the 5 songwriters who write all their stuff, and I'm gonna harass them until they make a session. And then we're gonna go take the risk and jump and do all this. But we were very clear on what we wanted, and that truly helped us. I understood as well that every A&R meeting that I sat, I would see how the A&R who maybe had, I don't know, Selena Gomez as a project wouldn't talk to me about the Selena Gomez. She'll talk to me about this little project that nobody cared because she signed it and I wasn't the big producer that was going to get Selena. And she would pitch me that. And after a couple of those meetings, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. To win this person, I'm going to produce that project. So I started going and telling the Masters and Strangers, we're going to start producing all the artists that these A&Rs sign that the big producers are not working on. And we're going to win them and turn those artists into superstars. And then we started with BB Rexa and Fifth Harmony and Camila Cabello. And so, and it was like, all of a sudden these artists started to break. Big Sean. And Sean becomes a superstar. All that happened with the same thing with Tiny. Tiny was already, this kind of heritage producer. But when we started back up and we got together, I was like, oh, John Janik, CEO of Interscope, who do you have that you think has potential? Oh, Kali Uchis. Okay, let me get that. Oh, who else? Okay, let me get that. And then oh, Noah calls me, bro, I got this kid. I just signed. It's incredible, but he's not fucking with his producer anymore. His name is Bad Bunny. Yeah, let me get that. Sheesh. And then what happens is one after the other. So it's just, again, finding the problem and putting a solution. And that's in everything in life across the board. Like, I went to Canada and started to see what was happening in Canada because I was like, okay, Drake is out here. There's tons of producers, but I realized a lot of the producers that were making the music, they were either signed to Boy Wonder or signed to somebody, so they weren't getting the shine. So I created a song called Merge, and I wanted to bring the best of the US, the best of Canada, the best of the UK, to go work with these guys that were no name, but they were so talented. They were the ones really behind the hits. And then that started to break all these guys, and that's how I found Daniel Caesar, because Matthew Burnett and Jordan Evans were two of these producers that I started managing in Toronto, and they were like, hey, let me introduce you to this kid that sleeps on our couch, and his name was Daniel Caesar. And then on that same token, here comes D'Angelo, was like, yo, have you heard of this kid, The Weeknd? Oh, wait, yeah, I heard something that Drake tweeted him. Well, he's having a show in Pickering. Okay, well, let's go to freaking Pickering and figure out who this kid is. Like, he tanked the show. All the labels left without wanting to sign him. So again, it's just that understanding the problem. The problem was these guys in Canada were not getting their right. And then when I got the opportunity to take over Universal Canada, that was the pitch. The pitch was like, hey, you guys here as a label are a marketing company, marketing US product, but you have the amazing talent. Shawn Mendes lived 3 blocks away from the Universal office. Alessia Cara, 20 minutes away. Like, they were there, but nobody was paying attention to them. And we started to change that dynamic, and that got me that job, and that job allowed me to create that change. And the same thing with Latin music. I came and I was like, here's this producer, Tiny, who's kind of at the tail end of his career. Reggaeton outside of Balvin is kind of pretty dead. Pop music is reigning here. But Balvin started to touch culture. He started to do things with fashion, and I was like, if this guy continues and someone follows who has the urban credibility, it's game over. This is gonna be the biggest genre in the music. And none of my peers in Latin music were worried about doing a culture business like Rock Nation. They were worried about making money. So that's where the idea from Neon came. It's like, we're gonna be the culture business, because the moment this music explodes, corporate America is gonna need a curator, and we're gonna be that curator for it. And we're gonna then win all the artists, whether we manage them or not, by being the culture flag, by being Rock Nation. Yeah. And essentially we came and we did that. And then with Tiny, was the same thing. Producers in Latin music were not being respected at all. They were like not getting paid. They weren't getting publishing. There was no mega superstar producer in Latin. And I remember being with Tiny one day in the car, and an artist called him and pretty much was like, hey, Tiny, take this or leave it, doesn't matter. I'm the one giving you the opportunity. And when Tiny hung up, his face collapsed and he was sad. And I told him, hey, you know what? I'm gonna make you bigger than that artist. And 7 months later, Tiny had done the VMAs, had multiple Diamond Awards, top 10 producer of the decade at Billboard, #1 producer on Billboard for 191 weeks, and he was a millionaire. And so, but it just comes from that. Like, always, again, your brain has an insane ability to help you solve the problem. You just got to give it the target. And every single goal, every single dream has a problem, right? It's like, if you want a private jet and you want to fly around and it costs $50 million, okay, the problem is that it costs $50 million and you might only have $10 in your bank. But at least you start understanding what it is. You start feeling what that moment is. If you want to get a Jay-Z placement, like, okay, that's the goal, but that has a problem, right? You might not know Jay-Z or Lenny or any of the A&Rs. So now you start hammering, and your brain starts saying, oh, wait a second, Jay Hatch might know this person and this person. And you start connecting the dots, and that's really the key to the success of everything that I've done in my career.
That's dope. Mine was talking a little bit on the same philosophy in terms of like, the mindset and how like water flows. It's all like some nerdy shit, but he's, obviously knows what he's talking about. Even though he said pause about 40 times, that's a whole other story. But consistency is very important in this game. Building relationships is really important in this game. When you started to realize that you were going on the right trajectory for your business, how did you set up for success for the other brands that you were ushering in as you were moving upwards? Like, how did you, you manifested, but then you also got to prepare for it too, right? So how did you prepare for that?
I'll be honest. I think everything I've ever done, it's always been a creative idea first. So I'll give you an example. Right before quarantine, I said, I feel like I could tell stories. I could do film and television. And I had my agents set me up with a bunch of meetings in Hollywood. And someone, Ben Silverstein, who is a huge Hollywood producer, he's like, you're a genius, but just go for low-hanging fruit, create a music show. Like, no one's doing a cool music show anymore. It's the same routine. Okay, cool. I wrote this treatment, sent it out to my agents. 2 weeks later, the show sold and became the signing at Netflix, right? Then I get on Quarantine Stars, and I started looking at all the things that are going viral, and this family in Latin music became extremely viral, all big superstar musicians. I approached them, created a show, became Disney Plus's #1 show. And it just started to go, these creative, and then I was like, oh wait, this is a business now. Like, I mind you, the first calls on Netflix, I'm talking about a $10 million budget and talking about showrunner and line producers. I was typing while they were talking, so I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. Yeah, But in that process, I started to understand what I always say is like, okay, what am I great at? Yeah. I'm the visionary. What I'm not the best at, and I learned to be at because you have to as an entrepreneur, was I'm not an operator. So I'm going to go find me an incredible operator. Right. And then I said, okay, how do I structure? And then actually, in the process, while I was in the process of my girl being pregnant and everything else in that, I spent a lot of time at home, right? So I was like watching these shows, like the series on Uber and the series on WeWork and the series on Spotify. And I was like, oh, this whole time I've been building business, and even though I've been very successful, I've been building my business based on EBITDA, right? Which is just like actual profit after taxes and everything else, right? If you don't know what that word is, you should find out, because if you're trying to make billions of dollars, this is how it goes. Yeah. And I understood that these guys play the valuation game. They don't play based on just profits. They play on the value of something, right? Netflix is $5 billion in debt, but is worth $32 billion. So it's all valuation. And these CEOs, whether it's the CEO of Uber, WeWork, WeWork went to bankruptcy and the CEO left being a billionaire because of valuation. So that part allowed me to understand even more, like, okay, I'm going to structure my business completely different. I'm going to bring in a CFO. I'm going to bring in the COO. I'm going to create my C-class. I'm going to operate the business in this growth. I'm going to create each of these companies to be individual businesses that work within an ecosystem. And today we're almost 52 people at the company across LA, Miami, and Mexico City. And so that really has allowed us to grow the business and build the business to be the machine that it is today at every level. But it's very important. Creative, again, but it's important to understand what you're great at and what you're not. Like, it took me a long time to accept that as much as I wanted to be, I'm just not a great operator. I'm a visionary. Like, the actual operation of day to day bores me. And I would do it, and I became great at it to this point, but I see our COO now, for example, and she's a monster. Yeah. She thinks of things I don't think of, but she doesn't do what I do. Right. She can't lead the business. She can't come up with the TV show idea. She can't go produce, a $75 million movie. That's just not what she does. Yeah. And so that's given us a lot of opportunity and growth in the business because you position the right pieces.
Yeah, that's a gem right there. I think one of the biggest problems we have as creators is sometimes we just want to do it all, but we don't think about the process of getting it all done, right? Like, I look at bios sometimes and people like tag me in pictures and I'm like, this dude's a rapper, engineer, producer, videographer, dog walker, Uber driver, pizza maker, baker. You know, and the reality is you cannot be great at all those things at once. Like what Lex was talking, and it's kind of my mentality is that we create things that are great and we build up that structure and that foundation, get the right people involved, so that way we can move on to things. But we still have to manage certain processes and be a supervisor of that. It's like under our umbrella. You know, it's crazy because, you know, we focus on a lot of things we can't control. You know, like Ilman was saying earlier, like sometimes you can't think negatively because your body will act negatively. Like you can't think of things in the past where you can't fix. Like you just have to figure out how to, you know, take from this point and get better at that. So what do you think has been your weakness in this whole process? What do you think you can get better at that you still haven't maybe got to yet?
I would say that it wasn't until recent years where I've understood what you're saying now, right? I speak at schools all the time, and I spoke at the Ross Business School in Michigan, and a girl came up to me and she asked me, Lex, how do you define success? Because I'm scared, I'm about to graduate. And I said, speaking to you. Because a second ago, it's gone. I can't change it. And a minute from now, even though I think I can influence it, I truly don't control. So all I control is the now. All I can control is this moment right now. And if I live with that notion and that understanding that if all I can control is now, and the same, if I hit this thing, the water moves, right? It creates a change of energy. So what makes you think if I touch you, that same energy doesn't change? Or that my words talking to you right now while you're sitting here are not impacting your life? They are. That is the nature of life, right? So to me, one of the things that I didn't do early on was enjoy the moment. You know, I didn't enjoy those successes because you had, you know, part of you remembered that you weren't there before. And then that made you afraid of the future because then you're like, well, what if I lose it? What if I never have another hit again? What if, so I have to keep grinding. I have to keep working, and I could win the Grammy today, but I have to keep doing that. And it stopped you from taking a second and say, wait a second, like, most people don't even get to where I am today. Like, most people don't get to go to the Grammys for the first time. Most people are at home trying to make a beat. I'm at the Grammys. Whether I'm nominated or not, I'm at the party. I got it. You know, whether I'm nominated or not, shoot, I got to meet Jay Hatch. Like, this man knows all the producers. Like, I remember the first time I sat on a private jet and a friend invited me, I was like, oh man, this is nice. This is real. Like, I can feel this. And I didn't have $1 to pay for this. Now I fly private and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that day. That's how it felt. But you don't enjoy those moments most of the time because you're so worried about the what ifs, you know? And I think talking to what he was saying about before about, you know, people that do too much, musicians and creators tend to do that a lot. And artists tend to do that even more because like, I could rap, I could sing, I could do this, and I could talk about like inspirational things, but I could also talk about love, but I could talk about love from this way and this way and this. It's like most artists who make it narrow that down to one thought, right? So I always use this example when people talk about, somebody asked me, what do you think about Olivia Rodrigo's success? And I said, I'll tell you why it worked. Because she happened to capture in that first album that moment when you break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend and you're just about like 2 weeks in, where if he calls you back or she calls you back, you're gonna be right back. But you're like, oh, I hope he calls me back. But and when you listen to that song, Driver License, that's what it was. It was like, yo, we used to talk about this. Now I finally got my license. Now I'm driving down this road without you. Or when she says, you know, don't you get deja vu taking this girl everywhere you just took me? Or when she says, you're not a traitor. I mean, you're not a cheater. You're a traitor because, fine, you didn't cheat on me while we were in the relationship, but we just ended 2 weeks ago and now you're already with her. So you're a traitor. You actually betrayed me. She captured that. Right? When you look at Rihanna, she never talks about love in this beautiful ways. It's always destructive love. Right? If you look at Adele, she's had very particular. If you look at Katy Perry, she gave you I'm a California Girl, and that taught you. When you look at Alessia Cara, and she created Here, then it made sense for her to be wearing Chucks and jeans everywhere she go, because it's her whole point of that breakout hit was just accept who you are. Like, you don't have to fit in. And that is, so if you look at Bad Bunny, it's the same exact thing. He took the Drake model and said, I'm going to apply it here. And as I go, I'm going to be super clear. Like, I love wrestling. So every single day, every single video, I'm going to put wrestling, all that first part of his career. And then when he got the opportunity to go to WE, he didn't just say, I'm going to go as a guest. No, he went 3 months to Orlando, got himself, and then became the highest selling merch of WE history. You understand the power? That's insane. But it's because it's clarity. Like, and clarity comes from clearly understanding where you go. I'll give you a very other example on the financial. With Tiny, we sat down and I literally wrote down very specific things we wanted to do. And one of the things he wanted when he started making money, he was like, I want a house. And he took me to go see this house. He's like, you think I should buy it? And I said, Tiny, but what do you want in the house? He's like, oh, actually, I don't know, but maybe this one. I said, look, how about we do this? I'm going to get my real estate agent. And we're going to take a boat and we're going to go house by house and we'll just start looking at houses. Because when you see it, you're going to know what you want. And when you want, we'll be able to get that. Because if not, you're going to buy a house and 6 months later, you're going to be like, damn, I don't really like this house. I want to change this. Actually, I just want to move. And you're going to be out of millions of dollars and you're going to come back to me and say, why did we buy this house? So he kept on, I want a house, it'd be great. Kept on looking. He just didn't know. J Balvin calls us and it's like, hey, I'm going to have my first stadium shows in Medellin. I want you guys to come. I'm shooting this documentary, blah, 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 blah. So we go. The night before the show, he invites us to this new house that he built, all Japanese style. The moment Tiny walks in, he looks at me and goes, this is what I want. I said, okay. We got back to Miami. I took pictures of hostess house and I sent it to the real estate. Today, Tiny lives in his dream house. Nice. But he lives in it because he understood what it was. Like, and that's the same thing that happens with a lot of our dreams. You don't know how to get there. You don't know how to take the steps. You don't know how to appreciate the step you're in because you truly don't know what you want. You think you know because you see it on somebody else's story or somebody else's Instagram or somebody else's success story. And you're like, oh, that's what I want. I want to be. It's like, do you really want to be that? You know the lifestyle that it takes to be a successful artist, the sacrifices that it takes, the pressure that it takes to know that one day fans love you, the next you can't hit a record if your life depended on it. Like, do you really want fame? Do you really, like, you have to truly sit yourself down and be very specific as possible in what you want. Whether it be a material thing, whether it be a dream thing, whether it be a career thing, like the more specific you can get of your dream. Like I'm talking about extra specific. Like when I talk about I want to win an Oscar, I know the Oscar I want to win, I know what suit I'm going to wear when I go. Like I think about it and I visualize it because another thing that's important and that does for you is that it creates obsession. And when you obsess about it, you do something organically that we all do as humans, which is you speak it. And when you speak it, you do something else that happens that's amazing, that when you surround yourself with the right people, they start speaking it too, because they're like, oh yeah, Lex wants that, bro. My man's going to win an Oscar one day. And that starts changing the energy around you. And your brain starts saying, wait a second, I think I know how to get you there. And all that creates this ball that you look at other people's lives, and you're like, how did that success? Success happens like a rubber band. You're pulling, and when it happens, it's like this. You notice that an artist goes and it's like, bam, 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 and all of a sudden it's like, last year I didn't know who this guy is. Today, Peso Pluma is the biggest artist in the world. Same process, and it works on everything in your life.
I mean, it's like going to the gym, right? If you're gonna try to focus on one part of your body and work it out, you got to do certain reps at certain weights to get certain results. You know, our biggest problem really is, and it's a simple problem. It's same results. I mean, same action, same results equals insanity. But for some reason, we all feel like we know what we need to do when we don't, right? So to his point, what I like to do whenever I'm doing an event or if I have a major goal I want to accomplish, I'm always trying to vision it and then walk myself back out of it so I leave those breadcrumbs. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to know, okay, so I'm walking up to the front counter. What does it got to look like? We had this conversation years ago.
Yeah.
Like what are the colors I want to see? Where's the if Alex is coming to speak, what is he gonna want to experience? Like you got to figure all those things out because you got to get into the minds of people that are you're trying to attract to you sometimes, right? So that whole mentality of just like envisioning it, I can't tell you because, you know, we all go through the same things. You know, I manage producers and writers. I've had success. But you get to a point where it's like all of a sudden they're not calling anymore for whatever reason. Or you're sending emails out and they're not responsive. Or they got something else going on. They just left it up in another label and they're trying to reinvent themselves. Whatever the case may be. That's cool. That's them though. That's a them problem. That's not a you problem. You got to be consistent every day, no matter what the cause is.
Right.
Right? Somebody was saying something the other day. I think it was at the Coast to Coast conference where something about like you can't be motivated. Like you can't be motivated every day to get to your goal. Right? Like somebody can't come up to you every day and say, "Okay, you're gonna be an amazing artist today." That gives you that like, okay, yeah, I could do this. I could do this. You got to find that within yourself. You got to find a way to convince yourself that everything else around you does not matter. You know what I'm saying? No matter how much it hurts, no matter how much it makes you have to sacrifice, you got to literally every day look in the mirror and say, I'm the fucking GOAT. Like, I can do this. And then you got to follow along with that. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause the day you stop, Lex can tell you, step away from that poker table, they're stealing your chips. It's just how it is. You know what I'm saying? So to be as consistent as you've been and gradually grown into the film space and the publishing space, and like, what do you think some of your most important attributes are that have gotten you to that point? What is it about Lex that's driving him to these goals and whatnot?
I think it's just what I spoke about, right? And it's something that, not thinking back, you always had done really well with looking at an event, and I remember walking through and you said, with colors here and the experiences, it's in the details and it's in really knowing. But I think there's three keys for me always. One is purpose, right? Like, I think is what we're all trying to find every single day. And one of the things I realize is your purpose always is going to be aligned with helping someone. It's point blank period. Like, we're an ecosystem. We're created in this way, right? And when you think even the biggest corporations in the world, Apple and Google and Amazon, like Jeff didn't say, I'm going to go be a billionaire. He just happened to have an idea that he felt will help people have more access to more books, and then evolved that idea and became a millionaire. But your purpose and what's going to drive you is what's going to give you the perseverance to go through all the BS and go through the hard times and go through the no's is going to be the why. Why am I doing this? Like, what am I really waking up in the morning and want to be a music producer or an artist? Like, what am I going to get out of it? And if the answer is money, you're already started to fail. Because money is listen, people think that because you have money, life gets easier, and it facilitates things, but it doesn't simplify. It complicates it, right? You're dealing with bigger problems, and everything's a lot bigger in that way. And so you have to have an understanding of why you're doing it. Then you have to have a very clear vision on what is it that you want. Like I said, the details. Then you got to obsess about it. Obsession is key because it's that consistent, like I said, that consistent conversation on it. And then after that, you really have to be able to enjoy the moment and understand that space. And so I think I've been really good at that. I've been really good at understanding why I wake up every morning and do what I do. I've been really good at identifying what I want and obsessing about it. And then not taking no for an answer. Like, I think even back then when I was a kid, I just believed that I can do it. I believe that I can do all these things that I'm doing. I enter television thinking I can do it, and within a year, I'm in the creme de la creme of Hollywood doing the master, but it's just because when I walk in that room, I know why, I know how I'm going to do it, I'm obsessed about it, so now I understand the chessboard, and once I understand the chessboard, I'm a great chess player. I will beat you in it every single time. Right. And then I understand that, which is like, when I walk in the room, my purpose will allow me to control the room, will allow me to understand people, will understand me. I get the energy that people give up. I understand who I'm walking into, and I understand then how to manipulate that room and create what I want. And that comes from all that, and it comes from practicing that. And for those that don't have that naturally, I always say, and I give this away to a lot of people, I carry this 5-minute journal. And the 5-minute journal does something incredible, because the first question it asks you is, write 3 things you're grateful for. Then it tells you, write 3 things that will make today great. Then it tells you, what is one daily affirmation? And then at night is, write 3 things that went great. Write 1 thing that you learned today. And what that does is starts training your brain, 1, to be grateful, 2, to truly understand what's going to make today great. And that's really important, because I say this to my team all the time. I'm like, you can have 1,000 ideas. You have 1,000 opportunities. That's like an airport having 1,000 planes flying around. If you don't land one, get the people out and get somebody else there, the airline's not making money. So all these 1,000 planes flying around mean nothing, zero to anybody. Land the plane. And you don't know what plane to land if you don't know what's going to make today great. And so sometimes I could have $20 million worth of open deals, but maybe only one of them that I can actually close this week. So if I understand that, instead of trying to focus little and trying to have these conversations, I say, I'm going to handle those next week. This one I can close this week, and I close it. And then I start bringing money and revenue to the business. So the same way goes it. The more that you understand, land the idea, get it in. And that journal, you can find it on Amazon, anywhere else. I suggest everybody gets it because it allows you to identify the things that are truly going to make you happy or that you want to accomplish today. And as you get really good at it, you start identifying and you start putting things in that journal that then start becoming true. And you're like, oh, shoot, I wrote that last month. But those, again, from my personal life and what I see and how I build my team, those are the things that really have made us this kind of power player group that allows us to accomplish everything we're doing.
Yeah, it also cleans the focus, I think, too. Like we have so many things going on in our brain. If we write it down every day and kind of focus on more important things, kind of almost shuts out the rest of all that negative white noise you might have in your brain of things that you think might help you, but at the end of the day, they're really not that important. And one of the things that I do is I try to weigh everything I do on like a urgency versus importance scale, which is a common conversation. But sometimes as creatives, we also have a hard time scheduling, understanding what to do and what order to do it in. So, you know, if you could find a way to, if you could balance your life in a way where you know what moves to make versus other moves and know the order of them and have your master list of things you still want to do and manage that properly, you can go a lot further, but you also feel like you're getting there a little bit faster because you're not worrying about things that you can't control. Like he was saying, if there's all these deals on the table, but the urgency is like, if I close this, it's going to lead to this, or it's going to bring that money in and we're going to do something with it. 2 months from now, I want to do this, so that deal will bring that in so I can have that happen. Everything you do should be based on that. Like you should be focusing on compartmentalizing your life. Put it all in a schedule. I schedule when I'm going to eat, when I'm going to the gym, when I'm hanging out with my girls, when I'm going to be at an event, whatever the case may be. If you can get that detailed, it looks like a lot, but you start to see the pockets of time you really do have. Yep. Right? We're always like so busy because we're scatterbrained. Yep. But if you really look at it every day like a war board and say, okay, so Monday, I'm going to do my 15-person audit. I'm going to text everybody that I met in the last 2 weeks to see how you're doing. That night, I'm going to focus on social media. Tomorrow, I'm in the studio all day. I'm working on songwriting. I got nothing to do tomorrow night? Cool. I'm going to do something I haven't done in a while yet because it wasn't an urgent thing. It was important. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you can really manage yourself like a CEO, per se, your life, you can be very successful just by hitting those small points. And also, too, what you were saying earlier is about understanding what success means to you. Because once you get to certain points on that trajectory, you start to get fueled up again. You're like, oh shit, I just did this one deal. It wasn't huge, but it got me in these rooms, or it made this happen, or I met this person that's going to lead to something even bigger. So don't ever discount yourself when it comes to leverage or value, because we all have it. You know, whether it's like 2 hands and 2 legs and a brain, and you're going to help somebody out being a servant in a situation, right? You know, if you have a skill set that maybe somebody else doesn't have, like he was saying, you find somebody who's better than you at that thing, you make them part of the business. You know what I mean? If they have a dream and they know they can get to their dream a little bit faster by working with Lex, that's why his intern team is like executives, because they see the vision. He clearly points the vision out. We sometimes have a hard time doing that for ourselves, but because he's such a visionary, he can kind of oversee the entire thing and go, okay, you know what? You guys are great at that. You guys focus on that. I'm good at this. So I'm going to stay here and watch you guys do this and help when I need something, when you need something. So just understand, like, you can, like, all this is possible. Like, everything's possible. You just have to understand the power of you. You know what I'm saying? So
100%.
Give it up for my brother, Lex Borrero. It's with great privilege. And actually, before I do that, let me tell you something. This guy started Instagram before Instagram started. He was in my living room with a fucking big white war board that had like pictures of different things. The idea was to let people into your lives. Like, he was going to pitch this idea to Diddy. hey Diddy, you can do this subscription thing where people could come in and follow your life around. You can give them like additional information about you that maybe nobody else can give them. Like, he had this written up in front of me.
Yeah.
This was like 12 years before Instagram even came to fruition.
And remember that, I just saw the presentation the other day. It was called Star Status.
Yes, Star Status, yes.
And we got some money for it, and the CTO that we hired let us stay in his apartment, which was like, oh, finally we have somewhere to stay that's nice in New York City. And he stole our money. Really? But it was, yeah, he stole our money. And essentially that was the idea. Like when you look at it, it was a mixture of what Instagram is today with what became OnlyFans. Like it was really this kind of, you can create content because your audience would buy that content exclusively if they felt that they had exclusivity. And we built the whole platform and everything. And same thing, years later, I sat on a red wall in my bedroom with my partner, and we created this, which today is our film television company, Entertain. And we said, the world's gonna go digital. How would we license shows and put them in a streaming platform? And we hired your boy too as a CTO. Okay. Remember what was the guy whose name? And we started to draw the plan for what today would be something like Hulu. And I always had these ideas. But that name actually, you know, now is used for television for our company, which has worked out. Crazy. But I would have been nice to be a billionaire. I'm not gonna lie. You know what I mean? It is, amen to that. It is. It definitely is.
Well, like I said, without further ado, it's a privilege for me to give you this honor. We started doing these flower awards recently. Guys, keep it down. We started this award about 3 months ago in LA. We've given it to Steve LaBelle, Mike and Keys, Rock Wilder, Don Cannon, Needle, Street Runner, Money Making Matt, who manages Cardiac. So this award is called the Dream Big Hustle Hard Award. Bring it back. And we want to give you your flowers.
Thank you, man.
No vowels, like you. No vowels. But this is, this is for all your hard work and your contribution to the game, and just my privilege to know you as a brother. So I love you, man.
I love you.
You know, one time I got Lex Borrero. I want to see him dancing next.
Oh no, that's gonna be next to all my.
Do a quick little flick. Where's
Oh man. Blast from the past.
Where's Rick down here? Let's do a quick flick. Get over here, sis.
Let me get on this way. Yeah. That's a lot of big names, man.
Hey, man. Word up. Mix it in there.